Alright, what is going on YouTube? Welcome to the semifinals of a USA Cup, a tournament that has a prize pool of about $6,500 approximately. Some of that is cash, but the winner gets a fairly expensive watch. And we will have one of the semifinals over here, Spring versus T90. Here is the draft for a best of 5. You see that we have one global ban each, and after that, 6 picks with no snipe: Chinese, Japanese, Persians, Burgundians, Teutons, Berbers for T90, and Mongols, Lithuanians, Indians, Aztecs, Turks, and Malay for Spring. So let's jump into the first game right away. I'm going to be casting recorded games, but this just gives me a bit of flexibility when it comes to pausing and rewinding, so that could be a positive thing over here. We're going to have Spring in his usual purple color on the south with Aztecs, and to the north it's going to be T90 with Chinese in yellow too. Very standard Arabian civilizations overall. No surprise in that department so far. So what's more interesting is that Spring is sending that Eagle forward right away, and it looks like laming is not banned, because in this very moment Spring is going to be able to steal 2 sheep that T90 recovers quite nicely over here. So the tournament has fairly standard maps. I think there is some more unique ones overall, and T90 has both of these boars on the right side. I am fairly certain Spring wants to steal boars here, not just sheep, but at the end of the day it looks like he will get away with 2 sheep, and T90 won't be going that way, so it looks like he will give up on 2 of his sheep. The Ibex are technically pushable, but they're quite far away, so it's going to be a little bit more challenging for T90 to compensate for those lost sheep. And his woodline is also kind of far away. Spring cannot actually kill this Will with the Eagle, despite that Will being alone, because these Wills already have loom thanks to T90 being Chinese. So looking at his map over here, first of all, he's got an idol here for quite a while. What's happening to you, Tristan? It looks like he didn't notice this, because this Will has been idle for a long time. Okay, now he's back. I think he was trying to push in deer to compensate for the 2 lost sheep over here. Spring actually split up those sheep in 2 directions to make sure that T90 can't actually get both of them back to his base. And Spring still tries to be annoying, trying to block that Ibex from being pushed in. T90 comes in here with the first boar. I would think that it's not the end of the world that you're going to lose 2 sheep over here. You will be able to push in at least 1 deer, and that should be more or less compensating to you. What is T90 up to here, though? That was a hunter for a moment. Okay, he's gonna drop some houses on the front. So it looks like Spring might try to block the other boar here, or the Will that's going to lure it in. So for now, oh nope, Spring actually goes for a late lame over here. And if T90 doesn't give up on that Ibex, he's in the danger of losing that boar. He clearly sees that, and you can tell that he actually wanted to push that further, but he realized that, oh shoot, I have to catch my boar. Looking at T90's POV, he doesn't see the boar right now, but he saw it running this way. So he knows that Spring is somewhere around over here, and now he spots the boar. Spring's Eagle is very low HP, and I think the boar is gonna go back. This is perfect for T90. 1 more hit, and that Eagle is dead. That would be a massive win for T90 here. Losing 2 sheep is one thing. It looks like this attack was uphill, so it's gonna be 1 more hit against that Eagle, but nonetheless, Spring will be without any kind of vision, which is a disaster against Chinese, because Chinese is one of the most versatile civilizations in the entire game. You really don't know if they open scouts or go archers, so being completely blind here without a scout is going to hurt really badly for Spring over here, and T90 can just push in his deer without any major issues. So let's talk about maps here real quick, as Spring actually gets a relatively early loom over here as he goes out for a barracks. That timing, this could still be sort of a late rush here from Spring, but I'm thinking more about the Men-at-Arms opening with Aztecs for him. Spring's base is actually pretty decent. I would like to add that he still hasn't added a mill. So this is a very late mill here from Spring. It looks like he wanted to focus a lot on hunting, especially consuming his boar, consuming his sheep, and I would assume that one of the reasons why he delayed the mill is because he was assuming that he can actually steal a boar from T90, which didn't happen. Looks like we're gonna have a drush here, because Spring is actually picking off just 10 gold and not making a mining camp right now. But this is a late pre-mill drush in this case for Spring. He was probably distracted by the fact that he was laming T90. So the good news for T90 is that he's Chinese, so even if he needs to drop 1 or 2 farms in Dark Age to compensate for lost sheep, it's not the end of the world because those farms have some extra food on it. T90 spots the barracks, and he's going to see the militias coming forward. That's a perfect mill spot there for Spring, by the way. Let's talk about maps here. Spring's gold is quite heavily on the front. He's got a backup gold here, though. So depending on how he plans to wall himself, he's got fairly safe base, I would say. The right side is fairly open, which could be a little bit troublesome, but overall it's an okay base for Spring. T90 actually has some big walls over here. He kind of has to make those because the woodlands are very far away from his TC. His gold mine this way is going to be fairly secure, so that should be of no concern, and I really like the way that he's actually tracking those militias, just to make sure he knows where they are coming from. T90 is the first one to click up into Field Age at 24 Vales. This feels like an Archer-style opening with Chinese here, although I don't see Vales going to gold, so we might end up with a Scouts play. Second Lumber Camp just now coming in for T90, and on the other side, Spring is going for 23 Vales. This feels like either a late rush into Archers, or it's more like a very, very late Men-at-Arms play. Did I say late Drush Archers? No, I meant either early Drush Archers, because that would be like 24, 25 Vales, or a late Men-at-Arms play. Now, it looks like he is pulling 4 Vales here, so he will convert this into a Men-at-Arms Towers. I would assume that he wanted to go Drush Archers, potentially, but then he changed his mind, and that's why he clicked up a little bit earlier. T90 just now going for that barracks. That's a very, very late barracks, and this is why he has to rush out 4 Vills to get that up. Usually you want to start making that barracks with 1 Vill at like 50% feudal progress. He started at 80. And Spring, he's going to try pushing this direction, which could be a good direction to push. He could deny the stone and the berries very easily, but as I said, because this Men-at-Arms play is so late, it's going to be awfully hard for him to get anything for it, and T90 spots the stone mine, so he knows exactly a tower rush is coming. I feel like Spring decided on this tower rush a little too late, because by this time, T90 is gonna have an archer range out, and you see that this tower won't do anything here for Spring, basically. It's just a springboard tower to get through these walls. But T90 can add some contingency walls here and here, get a couple of archers out, and that will prevent any additional towers from being dropped, unless they're actually within the range of this one. But even then, I feel like this push forward for Spring is gonna be very unlikely to happen. He's gonna be on 5 men-at-arms, so he's got quite a lot of beef over here in front of his army, but as I said, T90 just needs to make some small contingency walls here. Same thing on this side. He needs to pop out a couple of archers, and he should be all good to go. Now, it's a little bit risky from T90 to go for the archer play here, although it's a depends type of scenario, because eventually the Aztecs will like if you actually go for archers, because they can just go for the regals in the long run. On the other hand, you also don't like to open scouts, because if the Aztec player opens men-at-arms, you could be in trouble, and it looks like T90 might have some issues with his gold mine. He tries to stop this tower for the time being, but this allows the men-at-arms to run past. Goes for a quick walls on his gold mine. A little bit wacky quick walls, and oh boy, disaster. That's a massive disaster there for T90. Here goes Vil number 1, and there's a chance we will see another one being killed. 5 men-at-arms is a massive investment for Spring, but if he actually gets 2 Vils for it, that's more than enough for him. Also, T90 has to do quite a lot of defensive quick walling, so T90's eco here isn't looking as good as it could possibly be. It looks like he may have underestimated the importance of those men-at-arms going to his gold mine. So, quick walls now coming in on the woodline. There is still a hole there, and now the men-at-arms are trying to chase down the archers. No fletching just yet for T90, and I have to say that Spring is getting an excellent value for those men-at-arms. He's detaching one to the left to distract the archers and tries to send the other to the right. So far the defense has been alright from T90, nothing absolutely horrendous, but obviously losing 2 Vils is less than ideal. The good news for him is that Spring actually had 40 seconds TC idle time, so that compensates a tiny bit, and T90 is 1 minute with Chinese, which is not as bad as it sounds like. So, for now it looks like Spring is sort of focusing on his men-at-arms, which allows T90 to try and repair that tower, but that was a Vil death there, if I'm not mistaken. I just want to point out that, as I said, Spring was focusing on his men-at-arms, so T90 was able to repair this tower. And it looks like T90 realized it too late. He didn't jump into the tower, instead tried running away. And that meant that another wheel goes down. Now he's down 3, so he's one villager behind compared to the Aztecs player. The good news is that he's Chinese, so he will actually survive it. Losing 3 villas with any other civilization would be a disaster. Here with Chinese, he might be able to sort of survive, but all his advantage will be gone. Now the good news for him is that Spring is committing quite a lot of villas to mining stone. Spring doesn't have double bid-axe, so economically, I don't think that Spring is that much ahead compared to T90. And remember that these villas will have to walk back as well for Spring if he loses this forward. Now, it very much seems like we could see an archer counterattack here by T90, realizing that the men-at-arms are just here to distract him. Or, the alternative is that you pull the villas, rush that tower down, and you garrison the archers inside the other tower. This tower only has one, well, it doesn't have any units garrisoned inside, so it only shoots 1 arrow. So you could actually just, oh, T90! That is a great idea. He is trying to use his scout to block the escape path of the villas. Now, this vill is actually very low HP, so T90 is gotta be careful not to lose the lady. And he actually does. And I did mention that there is a hole here. Oh my goodness, now it's a disaster for T90. It is a disaster. He's gonna have to leave that house to run away. I think that's -1 vill again. So now T90 lost 5 vills in this game. He kinda needs to find a way to retaliate Spring for this one, because even though, as I said, Spring had basically 2 vills worth of idle time here, and he's only 2 vills ahead, no double bid-axe. So T90 is not completely dead, but it's definitely not looking great if you have lost 5 vills in Feudal Age. He's gonna go for a market, and I think this is the big deal here. Spring, he only had to invest into 5 men-at-arms, and he has been getting value from them ever since then. Meanwhile, T90 had to invest into archers, a blacksmith, whatsoever. So that means that he basically wasn't able to bank up resources like Spring did. Spring actually has resources to click up into Castle Age, but he's missing a building, and did you see that he actually dropped the second blacksmith in the first place? This is going to hurt badly for Spring, because number 1, T90 is coming in with archers, although nice reaction from Spring to keep those villas alive, and he's going to take down 1 more archer from T90. So the defensive towers will protect Spring's eco here, and what's more important is that, as I said, T90 should have been behind in Castle Age time by a massive margin, because Spring had the required resources a long time ago. However, because Spring didn't have the buildings, you see that he just now clicked up, and T90 is gonna be like, what, half a minute behind. Now, even without scouting that second barracks, T90 should know that, hey, I was going archers, I'm up against Aztecs. Aztecs always want to go for eagles, so T90, even without seeing this one, should know that it's gonna be eagles from the Aztecs player. Which means that he's gonna have to start thinking about knights for himself. He just clicked up to Castle Age, he has had the double bid-axe for a longer time, and now this is value for T90 here. Spring can pop out an eagle, but even just picking off a vill here would be huge for T90. It looks like he's gonna do his best to do that. The archers don't have any upgrades on them, and that's 1 eagle now. It looks like there's gonna be no vill being picked off. So, it's Spring actually made 2 houses here to make sure that it's harder for T90 to rush this tower down, although T90 could send out some stuff to deal with that. And T90 will probably switch into cavalry, indeed here's the stable, because otherwise he would be massing archers back home. So if you're Spring and you know that T90 knows that you're going for eagles, you're probably going to go for a monastery. Might even be a forward monastery, given the fact that Spring has an advantage into Castle Age, so you could try something like forward monastery over here, and then later on a siege workshop or so sort of transition this into monk and siege push style thing against the knights. He has triple barracks eagles, which with Aztecs is very, very dangerous, and it can easily overrun any civilization, because even with knights, if the eagles have good upgrades, they would just flood your base, because there's so many of them. Now, T90 is gonna have to add some contingency walls here behind. Bloodlines +1 defense now coming in for the knights. But as I said, he has just reached Castle Age, and Bloodlines is a little too late over here for him, so he won't be able to queue up a knight immediately on this one. Right now he's up against 8 eagles. Spring goes for squires first, and he's probably banking resources so he can actually do Eagle Warrior. And honestly, Spring has 400 stone. So he could, if he is able to secure a position here, he could think about a castle drop if T90 doesn't break out of his base. So T90 might not be satisfactory for T90 just to defend here, because Spring, as I said, is not far away from just dropping a castle even over here, and that would deny the primary gold of T90 with no backups available to him, basically. He's getting some knights out, he's got +1/+1, which is a fairly decent one. There is going to be a hole here if T90 doesn't bring something behind it. I think he believes that this house covers that gap, but that's not true. That's gonna be a hole. And indeed, the Eagles can come in now. T90 might be waiting for his opportunity because he's got enough knights to fight this one. Nice quick horse from him. And indeed, this might have been intentional from T90. I don't know if that was the case, but he's going to try to do the exact same trick here. Use the knight to block the escape path of the Eagles, which is going to be unsuccessful. And a somewhat questionable decision from Spring here. Going for a siege workshop first. I feel like if he goes for a monastery, this would have been a lot scarier for T90. Because a monastery with 2 monks even could make it much harder for those knights to get the kills on the Eagles. Now it looks like Spring is adding 2 more TCs. He won't be able to flood Eagles with free TCs production, especially because he only has 6 on food. So what that means is that he's going to probably lower his military spendings for the time being and focus a little bit more on the eco. T90 only has 1 TC for the time being. He could... oh, he actually sold his stone to go up. I didn't see that. T90 sold his stone to go up because he's just now back up to 100, which he just bought from the market. So that's how he actually caught up with Spring in Castle Age time. Makes some sense for him because he probably knew that Spring is gonna beat him to Castle Age. Spring takes into pikemen here. The mobility advantage here will be on the side of T90, so he will be able to outrun the pikemen chasing him. And like areas like this could be nice to hit. For the time being, this tower stays up, and T90 will eventually try to take that down as he takes down 3 Eagles without losing a knight. This was a good fight for T90. Killed 3 Eagles and the knights are still alive, which means he can go back home and heal them. I wonder if that's going to be something that we're going to see. Still double stable knights for him. Spring, 400 stone in the bank, and if he just makes a big mass of pikemen, like 10-15, as I said, a castle drop is still a possibility. It looks like he wants to turn this into a pike and siege push. As good as the previous fight was for T90, this was kind of underwhelming. Runs into a bunch of pikemen, and it doesn't seem like T90 is gonna have an answer to this infantry flood here in the next 1 or 2 minutes, which means that Spring could have a nice momentum here. Real quick. T90 is trying to find some value here for his knights, but the Spring reacts very nicely. So far, T90 has killed 2 Wills in this game, as, oh boy, that's a disaster fight for T90. That's way too many pikemen to deal with. The pikemen only have +1 defense, and the knights have +1/+2. So technically it's something that T90 can think about. And the gate remains open. T90 actually allows his opponent to run into his base once again. This could be intentional from T90 in an effort to trap this army in here, but that's -1 Will once again for T90. Will count is dead even army value as well, as T90 still has a hole here. Still has a hole here. Those bamboo trees are often misleading, but oh my goodness, these holes are killing T90 here. And oh, it's even worse, he's gonna have to delete the house, and now that is just spiraling out of control, so to say. And as I said, Spring is actually getting close to dropping a castle in T90's face. The problem is that T90 is like 0 momentum right now. His Will count is still actually pretty decent compared to the fact that he has been losing Wills left and right. Like, he lost 7 more Wills than Spring, yet the Will count is dead even, despite the fact that Spring is going for TC number 4. I don't really like this from Spring. Like, what is this tower even up to? Look at this. That's a graphics bug. So, at this point, Spring has 4 TCs, or he's gonna have 4 TCs, and 3 barracks, but he only has 15 on foot. He can't produce on 4 TCs. I'm really unsure if the 4th TC was worth it there for Spring now. It seems like we're gonna have some monks here from T90. Not sure what the plan is with those. I guess he just wanted to heal his knights, but now there is a siege push coming his way, and he's about to lose his monastery. Indeed, here comes the monk to heal the knights. T90 launches a counterattack, and he might be able to intercept some reinforcements, but I'm not sure if he's got enough beef here to hold off this push, although, truth being told, Spring doesn't have a huge army. It's 5 Eagles, 3 pikemen, and I feel like if he's not pushing T90, T90 is gonna mass the knights, and suddenly the mobility advantage will be on the side of T90. Another Will goes down from Spring, and I feel like he's sort of losing momentum. He went for 3 barracks, but if you do that, you gotta be aggressive, and you can't just transition into like a 4 TC boom here, especially because he doesn't really have the army to protect that 4 TC boom now. His army here in the front is going to pick off, I think, one more Vil here from T90, completely avoidable. And it looks like T90 actually assumes that Spring is gonna make some monks, because he made a couple of scouts. Now, this is what I was telling you before, that Spring didn't make a single monk, which is a questionable decision at this point, and while T90 is fighting this one, and Spring is distracted, he sends in the knights over here, and look at the Vil KD. 11 to 12 is the villager kill that ratio now, and T90 is back in this game. He's stronger than ever, and in retrospective, as I said, monks would have been probably way better here for Spring than a siege workshop, because all this siege workshop accomplished is taking out one house and a monastery. In exchange, Spring struggled to deal with the knights, because the pikemen have to travel a long distance to fight this one. He also didn't invest a lot into his pikemen. As I said, 4 TC boom might have been overly greedy here. Now, he's flooding pikemen now quite a lot, but this is the moment where I think that T90 is gonna have the mobility with the knights. He can go for scorpions against the pikemen, or alternatively he can think about making that castle that he is collecting stone for, and then starting to add Chukonu. Some more pikemen coming in here, still just +1 defense on them, which means they're not super dangerous. Spring pops out the mangonels in an effort to try and get a good ground attack in. T90 is going to sacrifice 2 or 3 knights over here to take down the mangonels, but cost efficiency wise, that was worth it. That's like 2 knights traded to 2 mangonels, and here comes the castle drop from Spring. He technically has the ability to drop it over here. That would be a very, very ballsy castle, but I feel like in Spring's position, he kind of needs that. A castle here is not going to do anything on T90. Oh, that's a too passive castle, I think, for Spring's position. He is down 13 Vils currently, but that's going to be a bigger deficit in a moment. And, I mean, T90 still has this gold safe. He could go for this gold. He can go out for this gold as well if he wants to. So, will this castle accomplish a lot? Unlikely. It's very, very unlikely, especially because T90 can make his own castle here to protect his base against any further pushes. For now, T90 just keeps running around the base of Spring, and the pikemen are hopelessly chasing it. Population are still very, very close because Spring's army numbers are huge, but it's a little bit misleading because most of that is fairly poorly upgraded pikemen, still just +1 defense on Spring, and he's up against a bunch of knights and more importantly scorpions. And it seems like T90 actually wants to drop a castle in the base of Spring, though. Interesting idea. It's a little bit risky, but theoretically, T90 might have the momentum to make it. Now, here's the deal. He loses 1 scorpion here, and he sees that the infantry is coming in here. This might be a little bit mismicroed by T90. You don't just want to kamikaze your Vils in here. What is T90 doing? Hello? That was, like... I understand the concept. I did mention that this is a ballsy castle, but... I mean... You gotta protect your Vils. +2 defense now coming in for Spring, which is gonna help quite a bit at containing this damage. And as I said, I don't think that T90 has enough here to deal with just that many pikemen. I mean, scorpions are nice, but the last 1 minute was a little bit underwhelming from our yellow player here, as now the eagles jump on the scorpions, and T90 is gonna be forced back. That castle isn't going up, and it very much seems like he wasn't expecting this many pikemen to hit the field. He's now going to rush up a castle here in an effort to protect the other gold mine. Spring is still 20 villas behind, and we're gonna have a completely useless battering ram here for T90. Luckily for T90, his opponent mainly has pikemen here, and pikemen aren't really good at killing vills. They are not super awful at that, but at this point it's better than, you know, facing like 30 eagles, for sure. Now T90, he knows he's gonna lose a couple of vills, but he also knows that Spring sent everything he has forward, so he can just send in a couple of knights and just keep raiding the wood lines of Spring, meaning that Spring is still stuck at around 80 vills, and now we're gonna have T90 coming in with a couple of Chukonu. He does have fletching on them, but no ballistics, no Botkin arrow, and an overchop on the wood line would mean that a couple of vills could die here, but thanks to the TC fire here, T90 is gonna have no trouble protecting that wood line. The knights, actually some of them getting intercepted here by the pikemen. T90 only has 8 army, and his army value is merely half of what Spring has. However, his economy is much more convincing, and I see a chance for T90 to go into Imperial. He is out of stone. That's something that's worth considering, but that is because he just dropped the second castle here, and that is exactly what I wanted to say, that if he grabs a castle here and goes into Imperial, he can trap this down, reclaim this gold, reclaim this stone, and he should be able to protect the front of his base. Some more raiding attempts here by Spring, but as I said, the TC here is going to be able to hold off those pikemen and the eagles very nicely. T90 clicks into Imperial. Spring is not impossibly far away, but he is still far, and look at Spring! He's microing a 1 HP pikeman or 2 HP here, so that the TC focuses on that and not the other troops, meaning that he can actually kill a couple of those vills here. Still, now that the Chukonu are in, this is not gonna work out well for Spring over there, and he's still behind by 17 vills. T90 needs a consistent production of Chukonu on both of his castles, and he needs to grab the upgrades as well, like Botkin, more importantly ballistics, because he doesn't even have a university. After that, Spring is gonna have a tough time here fighting this one, because he would need kind of onagers to do that, and I don't think that he's gonna be in Imperial. Actually, his resources are not looking that bad, but still that's gonna be at least 1.5 minutes deficit, and that should almost guarantee that this castle goes down. T90 will have to be careful to make sure that he doesn't get his trap sniped by eagles, though that's the only danger that T90 is facing over there. Eagles will be picked off here by the Chukonu, and those are some late gold and stone mining upgrades for T90, but I guess he wanted to prioritize military earlier in the game. He did lose his siege workshop here on the front, which is going to be a little bit annoying because I guess he wants to push up with a couple of rams as well to support the Chukonu, but for now, for him is, like, the priority is to take down this castle and reclaim this part of his base. He's got the mining camp coming in on the right side for the stone mine, as Spring is actually collecting relics. He already has one relic and he's bringing relic number 2. Keep in mind, Aztec relic bonus could be very, very massive here for Spring. And the biggest concern for T90 is that it doesn't really have a huge army here. Still just 15 army. Most of that is Chukonu. He's now taking to light cav in an effort to just probably try and pick off some villas at the opponent's base. And it looks like we'll have an eagle raid here from Spring. This could be devastating for T90 because even though he sees it, quick balling this is gonna be a nightmare, and the main reason why Spring wasn't able to kill more villas for a while is because T90, or Spring didn't actually go for a lot of eagles. But now if there is eagles, T90 could lose quite a lot of villas. Spring is also on the way to Imperial, and the thing is that T90 still doesn't have ballistics, and more importantly, he's only 14 villas ahead now, and that's actually a hole. That's a massive hole. What's happening to T90? Like, it's hard to wall off these bamboo trees because, you know, it's hard to spot if there's a hole. I'm not sure if T90 is using that mod that gives you, you know, identical pine trees. But nonetheless, as he's trapping this castle down, the eagles are rampaging his eco. He tried to launch a counterattack with the Chukonu, but the eagles are cleaning that one up. And now it's getting worse and worse. For T90, Spring's eagles are coming from multiple directions, and with the Chukonu still not having ballistics, they're not particularly efficient at taking down fast-moving units like eagles. T90 tries to retaliate with a couple of villas being picked off here on this wood line, and he will most likely be able to finish off that castle, but he is under heavy pressure inside his economy, and I wonder if he knows he's missing ballistics. Now he's gonna tech into plate boarding. Garland Wars immediately queued up here by Spring, and this is the domain where Chinese might start to struggle against Aztecs, because Chukonus in theory can actually destroy eagles in good numbers. In reality, it only happens if you have some good meat shield. Like, light cavalry Chukonu could work nicely for T90, but he needs a lot of time to tech into that, and I feel like if T90 gets flooded by eagle warriors, that could be devastating, and Spring has a huge amount of eagles. Tristan knows really well that the eagle flood is probably going to be imminent, so he's going to start stonewalling the left side of his base. Right side, he actually will spot Spring mining stone already over there, and there is still a hole here. What is this castle even for T90? I don't like this castle. This castle could be maybe over here, but I just feel like this castle is the same as this castle, pretty much. Or it could have been even over here to prevent eagles from running in, although the best thing here would be just to add a stone wall here. Nonetheless, we're gonna have some light cav from T90 being sent in here to destroy those stone miners. Spring has the eagles here to hold that one off though, as here comes the next wave of eagles. There's a hole here and there's a hole here, and the eagles will find both. There's actually a turret hole in between those houses as well. Luckily for T90, he's got multiple TCs and castles protecting his eco, so he won't lose a lot, but once again, it is Spring who is killing the wheels and not T90. In this one, there's also a couple of egos here, and this is why Aztecs are so dangerous. They can just flood you with infantry so fast. In fact, Spring, I'm not sure why he's still floating 1700 food and 1600 gold. He could easily overrun T90 here with just egos, and he's sort of doing that. Here comes the next wave of egos, and I feel like now mobility is a massive concern for T90. He's got a slow-moving army of Chukonu, whereas Spring is just going to keep flooding eagle after eagle into the base of T90, and this Chukunu opens up the gate, allowing those eagles to flood in. Those eagles technically were almost trapped in there, but now that the Chukunu opens up the gate, they will just steamroll T90's eco, and T90 now has his eco collapsing. 104 vills, Spring takes over in vill count, and T90 has like 40-50 idols. And at this point, you will just keep flooding the eagles, and the next wave might be lethal for T90. He's trying to compensate with some light cavalry raids, but it's easier for Spring to defend against the light cav with pikemen than it is for T90 to defend against the eagles. Like, he would need cavalier here, but that might be a little too late for this one. Spring's army value is still bigger, and T90 is down to 125 population. Aztec Eagles, man, they are very, very dangerous in here, and it very much seems like Spring is getting close to winning the first game. It's not completely over yet, but I feel like the 90s population here is looking really depressing, and there's still a hole here. And yeah, that should do it, honestly, because T90 is gonna lose like 5-10 more vills here. The Eagles can once again flood it, and T90's eco is in such a bad shape that he won't be able to just hold off the next wave of Eagles. I like the idea that he tried to stonewall himself, but the right side was way too exposed. And as I said, he's going to take an okay fight here, but an okay fight is not satisfactory for him right now because his economy is just non-existent. 83 vills, but half of them are idle. He's got 40 vills working. Spring is down to 90 as well, so in theory, if T90 somehow cleans this up, he might have a slim chance, especially if he's able to bring his eco back on track, but you see that the idle economy time is double for T90 over here. Spring is also sitting on 4 relics with Aztecs, by the way, which gives him a very, very nice and reliable gold income, especially long term. And the 5th relic is inaccessible for him, that's on T90's side. So at this point, T90, oh, that's a very late ballistics. I'm not sure if T90 just didn't prioritize that or he just forgot about that, but that ballistics could have been so helpful earlier for basically all the buildings. Spring now actually starts making barracks here on the right side. He knows that this is the weak spot on T90's base, not the left side, although the left side might also be breached soon. Sec, please, hotkey fix. Okay, what's the hotkey that T90 only had to start using at like minute 54 in a game? I'm curious now. There's a hole here. There's a big hole here. T90 realizes that this could be the make or break part of the game, but it looks like the quick walls are up, which means that some of these eagles will die over here. That was a life-saving thing for T90. He can't afford to let those eagles flood into his base. He's still 140 population only, and his walls are going down the left side. It looks like he's not reacting to that. If those eagles get in, I feel like this is probably gonna be game over, if it's not game over already. T90's army count looks somewhat depressing, the vill count alright-ish, and those eagles will just get through those walls. Okay, is T90 going to notice this, or what's happening? He's adding a second layer, and goes for a defensive castle. Defensive castle here will not be... Like, the defensive castle won't help, because the eagles will get through the walls. It's too late. It's too late for T90, and this might end up being a doubt castle even. Spring is also taking into Elite Skirm with Atlatl, and that would mean that the Chukunu now have something to deal with as well. The eagles, if they just get in here, then T90's eco is going to collapse, and look at the simultaneous attack by Spring. He's going to send in the eagles on the left, and while T90 is distracted, he is going to send in the eagles on the right. I don't think that T90 has the chance to survive this wave. He's going to pull a huge amount of vills trying to drop a castle in Spring's face, but I just feel like this castle will not accomplish much for T90. He's trying to raid his way back into this game, but he will have no answer to 67 Elite Eagle Warriors with Garland Wars inside his eco. As a reference, T90 has 60 army combined, and that's about 27 wheels that's gonna go down. This is kind of a GG over here. T90 will drop a castle, but this doesn't change the outcome of the game. I mean, he's at 100 population, and even if he somehow miraculously cleaned this one up, there's no way he survives the next wave, but he won't clean this up. And yeah, this is the typical scenario of just sending for the wheels. He's probably going to finish this castle and resign, because there is no way back into this game. He actually doesn't have eco back at home other than this wheel garrisoned in here. Yeah, like basically all of his wheels are here. No, he believes. T90 believes in the power of the Chu Canoe and that he can actually somehow retaliate Spring. If he didn't take this big eco deficit, I would dare to say that he might have had a chance with this push, but I mean, he was 35 wheels. He calls the GG, and Spring takes Arabia here in a quite back and forth game. If this series is gonna have 5 games like this one, I'm gonna be very, very happy with this. T90 loses Chinese over here, and Spring is going to lose Aztecs. So T90 actually lost his first civilization selection over here, whereas Spring actually lost a fairly late one, which is sort of a nice little added benefit, so to say, for Spring. Anyways, let's take a quick look at the stats before we actually move on to the next game. So, economy-wise, Spring actually surpassed T90 at the end, but that was mostly here. Like, drops like this in the wheel count and this is what actually managed to get Spring back into the game. So, you see that he gradually increased his population share and eventually just overran T90 with Eagles. At the end of the day, T90 ends up losing 175 wheels, only killing 48 from his opponent. Fun fact, Spring has 49 wheel losses, which means he lost 1 wheel to probably a tiger or something like that. So, with that being said, we will move on to the next game. Remaining civilizations are Japanese, Persians, Burgundians, Teutons, Berbers for T90, and Spring can stay with Mongols, Lithuanians, Indians, Turks, and Malay. So, we are going to a map that I'm not really familiar with. It's called Monocle. I think I've seen this map once or twice, but I wouldn't actually call myself very familiar with this one. So, welcome to Monocle. I think this was played in some sort of team game event, because I have memories of team games on this map. The way that this looks like is that you have a bunch of shorefish on the outside, and most of the gold is on the outside as well, and in the middle you only have wood and a bit of a gold. So T90 will be playing Japanese here in yellow, meaning that he's gonna be able to replace those mills very fast, and he can probably open men-at-arms, which is probably the main reason why he took this one, because otherwise, well, now that I think about that, they drafted civs. I forgot that they drafted civs, because Indians with the shore fishing bonus is probably the better civ economically early on this map, and I was like, why didn't T90 pick Indians? And then I realized, oh yeah, it's because, you know, this was civ draft. Indians was, by the way, the third pick of Spring, and T90 had Japanese as his second pick, which means that T90 picked Japanese earlier than Spring picked Indians in the draft. I just checked it. Which means that T90 could have had Indians, but he wanted Japanese here. So he has a game plan for this map. And as I said, men-at-arms opening here could be very devastating. The problem that Japanese could face here is mobility. If he can actually go for defensive spearman though on his fish, and then go for like spear and archer later on, that could be tough for Spring to deal with. Looking at the bases, by the way, Spring's base is very much sheltered here by this big wood line here. So the front of his base is very much closed in here, and T90 might actually try to yoink a Will here. Indeed, here he goes, the second Will comes in. Spring actually has to keep this Will over here, because otherwise if he starts running downhills, then T90 can get some downhills hits on him, and it looks like T90 will commit to this one, yoinks a Will away. That is an excellent start overall for T90. Finds a Will kill, which is very, very valuable at this stage, because that Will would have been a shore fishing Will. You see that at this point, Spring is not even going for the huntables, so the approach between the two players is very different. T90 goes for the boar, more of a traditional style play. He just replaces the would-be berries mill with a shorefish mill. In exchange, Spring actually goes for double mills even. You see that he's very, very heavy on food. He has 3 on wood, but he's using straggler trees. The reason why he's using straggler trees is because he can't afford 2 mills and a lumber camp. So what he's gonna do is just go for 2 mills, take stragglers, and then send these villas out for wood. But this means that he wants to have a very, very fast fuel age over here. Spring also tries to retaliate T90 for that will lost earlier, and T90 reacts nicely. Spring might try to poke away once again and try to get that kill. T90 hasn't queued up Loom just yet, so he's gonna wait with that a little bit. T90 only has 1 mill here and 5 on shorefish, whereas on the other side his opponent has 9-10 vills on shorefish. I feel like Spring's fuel age time here is gonna be brutally fast. He's at 14 vills. This is why, like, he lost 1 will and he also has Loom. That's why he was basically 2 vills behind. Once T90 grabs Loom, it's going to be just 1 will ahead. But this will still be a blazing fast fuel age timing from Spring. It might be the game plan for him after all, that he just wants to go for a super fast fuel and just flat out beat the Japanese player into fuel age, but that's not gonna happen. And T90 is gonna have a super fast fuel age here as well. I'm surprised how fast T90's fuel is here. I assume that the idea is that, as I said, you don't have to mine or chop that much wood, so you can probably get away with even 2 wheels on wood or so for T90. And now he can drop a second mill here as well. This fast fuel age, he's not going for gold mine. It might be Japanese scouts after all, which would be a little bit wacky, but I don't see any indication of him going for men-at-arms, or at least not this point. Spring goes up at basically... This is a fairly slow feudal, to be honest. This would be a 20 pop feudal age for Spring, had he not lost that will. And 20 pop feudal with Indians when you have 4 shorefish feels awkward, let's just say that. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that, while it may seem like the double shorefishing is great for Spring because he's got the Indian shorefishing bonus, these wills have to walk quite a bit now, and it might have been better after all for T90 to have a slightly slower food income, like Hunt, but you have it right underneath the TC, so he could just drop that off immediately. It might actually compensate for the fact that these wills get her fast. You see that they're bumping into each other, they have to walk quite a bit. Anyways, we're gonna have T90 coming in here with defensive spearman, as you would expect. He also tries to land a couple of hits on the opponent's scout before that scout actually gets into fuel age, and he pretty much pushes Spring Scout down to 5 HP, so it's 1 hit for T90 to finish that scout. That's why he's chasing, and he's actually going to open scouts. In this case, I assume that the idea is that he just wants to match the opponent's scouts here, and also he's gonna have better spearmen, which helps quite a bit. He has to do a little bit more walling on the front of his base to protect his wood line. On the other side, Spring is gonna have a super safe wood line over here. He could have walled like this as well. These dark patches are unwallable, so most of the fighting is going to happen on the outside rim. Spring takes the hill here, and he almost yoinks T90's scout, but T90 is able to save it and pick off the one from Spring. This is the domain where Japanese will become more and more efficient, because while Indians will have the getter rate bonus on the shorefish, it is very expensive to keep placing mills for our Indian player. And if you have to spend a lot of your wood into like making new mills, then you won't be able to add an archer range to deal with spearmen, for example. So flexibility will be a factor here for T90, because he doesn't need to spend as much wood on the mills as Spring would. which means that he can easily afford the addition of an archer range or so, in contrast to Spring. Spring is gonna get an archer range out himself, now goes for 2 on gold, so he's gonna make a couple of archers. Scouts from Spring now trying to find some value over here. There is a weak will, this could be picked off relatively easily. I think Spring might be going for this guy. Yeah, he finds that guy, and that's gonna be 1 will kill heal from Spring. Nicely done. On the other side, it looks like this archer range actually gets delayed, and there is only 2 villas inside that TC, so the scout may actually commit against this will here, trying to pick it off, but it looks like it's not going to be successful, and for the time being, there is 1 will killed from both sides. Spring, however, has more TC idle time than T90 does. So at this point, T90 has 16 on foot, his opponent only has 9, but those are 9 Japanese fishermen, and it looks like Spring wasn't paying attention to his wills here, and this Japanese spearman actually gets away with a will kill. T90 now with 3 will kills and just 1 lost will, as he's going to send the rest of his scouts to the base of Spring. Spring has just now gotten a couple of defensive spearmen out, whereas T90 already had some of those, and those are Japanese spearmen, so they are actually very devastating against scouts. T90 is also heavy on scouts here, he's already got 7, Spring only has 4, but what this could allow, or what this could give to T90 is a chance to sort of attack from 2 directions, drag away a spearman and then strike with the other group of scouts. Forging coming in here for T90, and it very much seems like he might be able to intercept another will here. The spearman comes in here, but it's a little late joining the party, and T90 with a nice micro, he actually drags away the spearman, yoinks it now, and that's going to be another will being killed here by T90. Very, very nicely done. He is now up by 5 wills, and his opponent isn't really able to retaliate. T90 already has the front of his base walled, and this might be a will kill here. Yeah, this is gonna be a little sloppy from T90 losing that will with the spearman around. But still, he now has a group of 6 scouts with +1/+1 soon and bloodlines. And while I like the idea of Spring adding a couple of archers to pick off spearmen, brute force scouts play might actually work out better for T90 here. Because those bloodlines +1/+1 scouts will destroy spearmen as well. Like spearmen without upgrades, they won't be able to match up against those scouts, and that will allow T90 to just jump on the fisherman immediately, and that's exactly what's gonna happen. He needs to yeet that pikeman or spearman, needs to jump on the other, and then just go for the vills, and in the dispatch 1 scout to deal with the archers so that he actually gets value there. Spring also distracted by that fighting, loses 2 scouts over there to the spearman. A little bit sloppy though from T90 to lose a couple of vills here on that second stable that he was building. Still, at this point T90 killed 8 vills, only lost 3, he has a 5 vills lead right now, and he's the one applying further pressure on Spring, picking off the archer. And I feel like now Spring is basically off from food, which means that he can't really make new spearmen, he can't really make new scouts, and T90 is going to use the mobility advantage now very, very nicely. So he can just keep running around and just trading Spring's eco until Spring pretty much has his eco collapse. Just like Spring did in the previous game, now it's going to be a mobility factor, 13 vills killed here by T90, and there is still like very, very little food income for Spring. He just now brings in his boar. Surprisingly, Spring has a huge amount of vills queued up here, so that could have been a blacksmith and forging or so, and that's the difference. Spring tried to transition to archers because he felt like he can't actually do this against Japanese spearmen, but in exchange his scouts are still very bad. Like, his scouts have 0 upgrades, T90 scouts have bloodlines and +1/+1, which means that they are actually a very devastating force. Archers can't really do much against +1/+1 scouts with bloodlines, especially if those archers don't even have fletching. Mobility advantage is on the side of T90, and at this point it's 35 vills versus 22, and behind this one T90 can just keep placing those cheap mills and just have a very, very good food income. I wonder how many vills or scouts he's got queued up. Not an awful lot, so he's far away from Castle Age, but I feel like this might be full feudal from T90. Another will goes down from Spring, and T90 has killed 18 vills. Spring has only killed 3 in this one. It's T90 all day in this game, and you see that while he's dragging the spearman to the right side, the scouts on the left side will come in, and that could be -2 or 3 vills once again from Spring. T90 is just going for double stable scouts now, and while Spring is trying to match his scout numbers in an effort to have something that's like equally fast moving to chase those down, the quality of Spring scouts are like not even close to T90's ones. Like no upgrades versus full feudal age upgrades, and you see that wherever I look there is villas going down from Spring. So yeah, at this point T90 can just sort of throw his scouts into the meat grinder and just keep grinding down those vill numbers. That's quite a lot of spearmen, so T90 doesn't want to fight that one, but it's 29 on food versus 14 on food. And Spring indeed calls the GG. Very, very nice strike back from T90 over here, as he grabs Monocle here with a fairly convincing scouts play. It looks like brute force scouts worked out better for him than the archer transition for Spring. And as much as I said that this was sort of a, like a previous game, was sort of a massive win for Spring, because he actually took away the first pick of the opponent with his fourth pick. Now this is a big win for T90 because he took away actually no, it's not that big of a win for T90 because Spring actually had a later pick. Obviously those are small things, but still T90 now evens the series out in a very important game over here. Used the Japanese really well. Somewhat unconventional to see Japanese going for the scouts play, but it's not that bad if you think about it. Japanese have fully upgraded scouts. They even have fully upgraded Castle Age Knights. So they can do a nice scouts into Knights play even, and the fact that their spearmen are very, very good also means that their defense back at home is a little bit better than other civilizations. So I still believe that the key here was the fact that T90 committed to the full scouts play, whereas Spring wanted to transition to archers, and for archers, especially when you're up against a lot of scouts with +1/+1 and bloodlines, you need a lot of spearman support, and you need a lot of archers overall to deal with that one, and you will still not have the mobility. And T90 was just able to use his mobility so well, outrun his opponent, and just keep picking off vills. This brings us to a map that I don't even know if I've ever seen. It's called Alpine. So we will jump into game number 3 with the players being even Steven in terms of score, and oh my goodness, what is this map? What is this map? Oh my goodness. We're gonna have Mongols for Spring over here in purple and Berbers for T90 in yellow. Berbers could be sort of a counter pick-ish to Mongols, because if T90 fears that this could be Mangudai in late game, then Camel Archers could work against that. Obviously Berbers have no answer to Siege Rams, but still. Let's talk about this map here though. You start with a horse instead of a scout, and it looks like you only have boars on the outside rim. But look at what T90 is doing. He's luring in boars from Spring's side. He did this with the one from here, and I think he wants to do it over here as well. So you don't really start with a huge amount of sheep, and oh, that's a disaster for Spring. He lost the boar basically over here on the left side, now loses a vill here, and T90 wants to lame. T90 goes full laming mode, and if Spring doesn't have food, look at that, he's gonna have to move out for that boar. He will still have this boar over here as well, but at the end of the day, T90 is gonna have way more boars to work with. Most of the stone and gold is on the outside here. In fact, there is a huge amount of stone and gold, so there's a chance that if this super aggressive game doesn't actually work out, then we could have something like, oh, T90 is gonna have to shoot that first because Spring was coming in here. This is a tricky situation for T90 because that boar now de-aggroes, and this could give a chance for Spring to lure it in. So T90 is gonna be careful not to lose this vill here. Yeah, this could be troublesome. He's sort of transitioning this into a lame. Other side though, Spring retaliates in vill block. So T90, as I said, his game plan here, capture age, that was frozen for a moment. So T90's game plan here was just to steal boars from Spring's side, and Spring actually lost the vill at the beginning of the game to a TC fire. Now, however, T90 loses this vill, and T90 lost the vill somewhere else as well. I didn't see that one happening. But still, now T90 actually lost 2 wheels in this game, and Spring only lost 1, and there's a chance T90 is gonna lose another one. Oh boy. That could be an absolute disaster. T90 is trying to do a double lame over here. Look at this absolute chaos and madness, and he loses another wheel over here. Spring is gonna have no trouble luring in that board. He could actually lure in too, to be honest. Indeed, Spring comes in with the second lure, and I feel like despite the very, very good early start and game plan for T90, I think that Spring's start actually ends up being better, although T90 still tries to come in with a board steal, and that would still mean that T90 has more boards to work with. Spring is gonna be at 3. T90 could still have like this one, he already had one at least. He could still have this one, and he still has these boards. Remember that Spring is Mongols, so the extra boards over here mean so much for him. This might be the reason why T90's game plan is to just try to lame everything away from Spring, because he knows that Mongols will be very dangerous if you give them like 4 or 5 boars. Now, Spring doesn't have a lumber camp just yet, as he accidentally kills that sheep, which is awkward because he still has another board to take over here. T90 already went for a lumber camp, as Spring tries to block another board from coming in for T90. At this point, I still think that board-wise T90 might be ahead, but he is down 2 wheels, which is obviously far from ideal. And you see that Spring, he might already be clicking up into Feudal Age, but he doesn't have a mill. Spring won't be able to click up to Feudal Age. I think he forgot that. I am almost 100% sure that he forgot about the second building. You see that he wanted to squeeze out a very, very fast Feudal. He has the flute over here, and he would try to click up, but because he was so late chopping wood, he doesn't have the wood for the second building here. And you see that he's sitting on 500 food, and all that Mongol's advantage will be gone here, because he's missing the second building. Now, truth being told, T90 is also missing the second building here, but as I said, this is a big win for T90 over here from the perspective that his opponent, the Mongols player, despite having quite a lot of hunt, is going to click up at like what, 19, 20 population. It's going to be a barracks coming in here for Spring, and it might end up being a man-at-arms play after all, but still, you see that this is actually a 21 pop man-at-arms play, basically. That is very, very standard. So, the barracks being delayed, or in general the wood being delayed, what is T90 up to? Is he gonna will fight this? That is interesting, let's just say that. In the meanwhile, T90 actually tries to prevent that boar from being taken by Spring here. He could actually block that wheel because Spring is not actually garrisoning the TC. T90 yoinks a wheel away here from the opponent, and what is this even? What is T90 even doing here? That wheel being killed was just... like, this might already be T90 believing that he can't win this game. Because there's nothing that justifies sending 5 wheels here to wheel rush 10 on that wood line. And yeah, honestly, T90... yeah, he might be GG here. Because he's out of boars, and he's gonna be out of food. He hasn't clicked up the Feudal Age just yet. So, I like his game plan, but execution-wise it went better for Spring. T90 wanted to just make sure that Spring doesn't have boars to work with. And Spring's gonna have to make a mill here, because he will need to make farms, but he doesn't actually have the mill for that, so this is gonna be like a farming-style mill. And yeah, indeed. This is a sort of a gimmicky / crazy map over here. I didn't expect this game to go super duper long, but I just feel like the massive civ advantage went to Spring's side over here with the Mongols. I don't even know, maybe Goths could have been a civ here for T90, honestly. Because with Goths, he could have lamed the opponent's boards a little easier, and that could have given him a little bit more leverage. Berbers is not a bad idea if you think about it. What Berbers gives you is faster moving vills, which allows you to run away from boars a little bit easier, allows you to go for the much easier lane. But yeah, T90's last pick here, Berbers, didn't work out. This was Spring's first pick here, so he used up his strongest civilization, or at least his earliest pick over here. You see that T90 was the one picking first in the draft here by the blue bar, so it was Chinese first by T90, and then Mongols, Lithuanians by Spring. Mongols now is gone in a very, very easy win, I would say, for Spring. And now it's match point, and what a better way to play match point than Arena. So we're going into Clown Town over here. Let's jump in here. Considering that we are using recorded games, I'm tempted to say that we could just fast forward Dark Age here, because there's gonna be nothing happening here that's like super relevant. We're going to have T90 with the brand new and shiny Burgundians on the right side in yellow, and the left side, a more traditional arena civilization, Malay, absolutely one of the best arena civs for Spring. For T90, Burgundy is a great arena civilization, but it really depends on how you use them. Looking at the relic positions, it's going to be relatively even, but T90 has only 2 close to him, and Spring has more like 3. Still, we shouldn't underestimate the fact that Burgundians get a massive buff from relics, so T90 might be putting a lot of emphasis on securing those. He has a back stone and a back gold mine, and a lot of space at the back, so that's actually a very, very nice position for him. Spring also has back stone and back gold, but his primary gold is very exposed, which is not so promising for him. So, as I said, I think the best thing to do here is to do a little bit of a fast forwarding, because otherwise we will just be sitting here in Dark Age, and Arena Dark Age is not super duper entertaining. T90 is going for 4 on wood, no surprise about that one, and he hasn't grabbed a single eco upgrade just yet. I wonder when he's planning to squeeze those in. Other side, Spring is doing only 3 on wood, which is a little bit surprising over here. I wonder what Spring has on his mind. For now, both players are just pushing in Deer. This is the one where T90 grabs a double bit axe. This will mean that he will click up a little bit later than his opponent, but grabbing double bit axe and then horse color in Dark Age when you start making farms is going to have its longer lasting benefit, and this is the one where I want to slow down because Spring is going for a very fast feudal here. This is a 20 pop Malay feudal, but it's not going to be for aggressive play. This is going to be because Spring wants to go for a safer approach. What Spring does here is that he's gonna go up to a fast feudal, grab the eco upgrades, and then just boom into Castle Age. Because this way his eco might not be as stretched out as it would possibly be with a fast castle, and considering that Burgundians can actually grab these upgrades earlier, I assume that what Spring believes is that, okay, I don't want to fall behind in that regard, because even if he gets to Castle Age a little faster, the fact that T90 has double bit axe and horse color, especially double bit axe, the entire game would probably compensate for the extra villas that Spring would get with the fast castle. So it makes some sense for Spring to just go for fast feudal, grab the eco upgrades, and then sort of boom into Castle Age style play. Spring now adding some villas on gold. T90 is going for a 26 plus 2. As I said, Burgundians, if you squeeze in the eco upgrades, then that's going to delay your Castle Age timing by some time. Probably 25, 26 villas overall is where you go up, and indeed that's what T90 is doing. Should have a nice and easy way into Castle Age, and the main benefit that you're getting here is that you are much more confident dropping farms when you have horse color on them. So this way, T90 is gonna have a sort of longer term efficiency over here. He's not gonna have to replace earlier farms that he has dropped, or so. He's able to afford a second lumber camp very, very easily without problems, and he's gonna go for barracks, which means that he will age up to castle with stable blacksmith, I assume. Could be stable market, but it's more likely we're going to see stable blacksmith for the fast castle, and then he's just going to fight for the relics, because he might want to play this game long, especially with Burgundians having a massive benefit from relics. Now, Spring apparently is gonna go for his own barracks as well, which means that we might be seeing some scouts coming in from him as well. Although obviously, Malay going for scouts is not something that's going to be impressing me a lot. They don't have any upgrades on... well, They do have some upgrades on their cavalry, but Malay Cav in general is just very underwhelming. And indeed, he goes for an archer range. So the big thing here, nope. He cancels and goes for a stable. Okay, so I think in terms of just grabbing relics, scouts are way better. That's absolutely true, and you don't really need a lot of upgrades here in feudal or even in early castle age on your scouts. So the fact that Malay cavalry is awful won't really show over here. The bigger question is, investing into a stable, because this stable is only going to be useful for Spring in the future if he's going for elephants. Any other situation, he's gonna be needing archer ranges. So I could have imagined Spring actually playing with crossbows here to try and secure the middle. But he decides by scouts, and he ages with a stable and a blacksmith. He's a little low on food, so he might need to idle his TC for a couple of seconds to be able to click up. Other side, T90 is already on the way, but remember that considering that Malay get to the next stage faster, the castle age times will be pretty much identical. Will advantage will obviously be on the side of Spring because of Malay, but T90 already has Boso and Heavy Plow, so his eco is going to be really strong here. I don't think that he will be able to afford more than one TC being added, and even if he does that, I'm not sure if he can drop a monastery immediately, so T90 seems to be a little low on wood and a little too excessive on food. He actually aged with a blacksmith, which means that he's not going to have a market to balance out his eco. What I would love to see from T90, considering that he's so heavy on food, is forging indeed, and he's going to go for that. Normally, I'm not necessarily a fan of grabbing early forging over here because it's probably better to just build up your eco. However, in this case, considering that he's so heavy on food, I can justify forging, and he's even going for light cap, so he will commit a lot to grabbing those relics over here. TC number 2 coming in alongside a monastery. As I said, he's gonna be very, very low on wood, but in exchange he already has Boso, whereas Spring doesn't. So he's gonna have that wood income needed to drop that third TC soon. Light Cav is in, and when Light Cav comes in, suddenly Malay is gonna struggle really badly, because you don't really want to go into prolonged engagements over here, especially once we see Bloodlines. I don't think that we're going to see Bloodlines here from T90, but it's not impossible. Suddenly, the Malay could be a much more troublesome civilization to play with over here. And as I said, T90 with the light cavalry, especially with forging on them, they will be able to pick off the scouts and even the spearmen quite easily, and this could allow T90 to yoink a relic away from Spring's side. Spring actually goes for his light cav upgrade himself, but if T90 decides to grab Bloodlines, that's not something that Spring can match, because guess what, Malay don't have Bloodlines on their cavalry. The key thing here for T90 is, I think, stealing one relic away from Spring's side. It looks like T90 is going for the safe relics first. I could have imagined him trying to steal this one right now, because he does have the map control to grab that, and he can pick these up later, but he likes to play this one safe apparently. TC number 3 coming in here for him as well. Will count difference is only 4, and T90 has Heavy Plow and Boso, so I feel like T90's eco is actually going to be better in the long run than Spring's one. Now T90 sees that there is going to be quite a lot of scouts. Now Light Cav coming in from Spring. Loses one Light Cav to them, and it very much seems like Spring will try to deny this relic away from T90. A little bit of a Light Cav scuffle over here. As I said, T90 does have forging, so Spring cannot win that. What else are we looking at? 25 and 20 are the food wheel counts over here. And this is the moment where T90 might be going for these two relics. If he can steal those, that would be jackpot for him. He's always trying to finish off this light cav over here. Spring might bring a couple more to try and even the odds over here. Indeed, he tries to bring in another one and just tries to isolate this army from T90. It looks like he might also find these monks, and this could be huge for Spring. This is huge for Spring. He takes down 2 monks from T90, and that results in a massive, massive win, I would say, for Spring, because T90 was actually fairly close to potentially yoinking at least one of these relics. Now that's not gonna happen, and I love how Spring is guarding these relics. One light cav over here, one light cav over here, and He probably isn't focusing on these that much because they are so much close to his base that it's gonna be very hard for T9 to pick them up. And also he's got a scout here that's trying to pick off monks. Now, T90's boom is getting better and better though, and we shouldn't underestimate this. So, while relics are nice, Spring has a lot of TC idle time over here, 5 minutes versus 21 seconds only. So, T90 is focusing very, very heavily on booming now, and it has its result. 59 avails versus 51 only, although Spring has wheelbarrow, but Spring is just now getting both, so he doesn't have heavy plow. So T90's economy is going to be much, much better than that of Spring's overall. He's still just on one relic. Spring hasn't picked up a single relic, in fact. Oh, Spring isn't even having a monastery. I didn't see that. So Spring only tries to deny the relics, but honestly, if this is the case and T90 knows this, T90 could add 1 or 2 knights. Because the thing is that if Spring doesn't have a single monk, then the knights are actually better here. I don't think, like, T90 either doesn't assume that Spring doesn't have a single monastery or monk, or just he doesn't think about this possibility, but if he knew that his opponent doesn't have a monastery and monks, the appropriate way to play this one would be knights here, not light cav. The reason why you always play light cav and not knights right away is because your opponent usually has monks, and you don't want your knights to be converted. So this is why I would say that if Spring doesn't bring in a single monk, then just 1 or 2 knights from T90 could be devastating here. Now, keep in mind that Spring is now adding University Monastery, and he is going for Imperial Age. So he's gonna go for a rather early Imperial with something like 65 or so eco. And that could be devastating, because the thing is that Arbalest Bombard Cannon from Malay could annihilate the base of T90. On the other hand, T90 is not far away from Imp himself, and he could get like Cavalier with +4 defense relatively fast in Imperial. Like, he can already get Cavalier while going up to Imperial. And that should be able to hold off small groups of Arbalests. That should be the game plan here for T90, because Spring is about to click up, he needs to balance out his eco a little bit, but considering that he aged the Blacksmith and the Stable, he won't be able to balance his eco out, and the same problem strikes Spring again. He could already be going up, but he isn't, because his eco balance is not there, and you see that he will click up just now. He could be like halfway up to Imperial already. So he needs a market like really badly in here. Just now adding archer range. But the thing is that he's gonna be an Imperial with no army. It's going to take so much time for him to mass those Arbalests. And he will beat T90 to Imperial by like 1.5 minutes. In exchange, however, when Spring reaches Imperial, he's gonna have 0 army. Like, you see, he has 1 range right now, just adding range number 2 and queuing up 1 archer. He's missing the entire Blacksmith upgrade line, he's missing ballistics, he's missing Thumbring, he's missing even crossbowman upgrade. So yeah, Spring is gonna be up to Imperial in 50 seconds, but he's gonna have absolutely no army. Whereas when T90 reaches Imperial, it's very likely that we're going to have at least a decent force for him, because he already has the production being set up. And Cavalry needs a little bit less time to tech into, because you only need to grab the Blacksmith upgrades and the Stable upgrade, but you don't actually have to grab University upgrades for them. And so Spring tries to yoink that monk, and he will be successful doing so. So T90 still only has 1 relic in here, the one that he could pick up easily. And as I said, Spring is up to Imperial, but you see that T90 will even see the archer ranges. So he knows it's Arbalest coming, but I mean, is it actually Arbalest? No, it's crossbowman with fletching. So by the time that Spring actually has like a meaningful force over here that is capable of doing any kind of damage, T90 is gonna have a decent force of cavalry here. Spring might actually yoink another monk here. T90 even grabbed Sanctity in an effort to try and make sure that his monks don't die that easily. As that wheel goes down, the wheels from T90 still don't have loom on them. And as I said, T90, he needs to queue up Cavalier though. That's a little bit sloppy from him. He needs Cavalier here queued up. And I don't see that upgrade coming in. I think he forgot about the fact that he should queue that up earlier. Because, like, ideally you want to hit or finish Cavalier by the time you reach Imperial, so you can think about Paladin. Nonetheless, right now the defense upgrades are what matter, and considering that Spring only has Botkin Arrow on his Orbs, at this point T90 is gonna be alright with the +2 defense. I wonder if he's going to start adding Custoliers though. He has made quite a lot of stables, and he's gonna make an absolutely horrendous mining camp over here. Conscription first though, Bracer on the way, and yeah, this is a late Cavalier here from T90, as his army will still be a lot more convincing than Spring's, and Spring is gonna have to tech into Halberdiers here. He won't be able to push like a huge amount of cavalry with just a couple of arbs, that's for sure. And remember that since Spring didn't pick up the relics, this is what I was talking about before, that if you just fight at the relics and try to deny them from the opponent, but you never actually make an effort to pick them up, eventually your opponent will pick them up. There's no way you can snipe down every single monk. And this is exactly what's happening. Spring, if he made a monastery earlier, just one monk, he could have picked up 2 free relics over here very easily, because he had map control for that. And now look at how T90 is establishing map control. He's controlling this neutral gold mine over here with that castle, more or less. He will be able to drop it over here. And he is gonna have probably 3-4 relics, which with Burgundy is a very, very nice scenario. Plate barding in here for him. And this is why I said that that was a late Cavalier tech, because he could already be working towards Paladin by now. Now, Spring is going to start working towards Halberdiers, something that T90 will be able to spot, as the Arbalests are now moving up. Those Arbs will actually die really easily here. They see the castle, so they will retreat, and it looks like T90 won't chase with the Cavalier. T90 picks off a will here from Spring, the first will kill for him in this game, and it looks like this relic is going to be impossible for T90 to pick up, but he could still grab this, and that would be 4 relics, which I think is going to make him very, very happy overall. The question now is what T90 going to do against Halberdiers, because one thing that T90 doesn't really do right now is attack. And that gives time for Spring to react, despite the fact that currently T90's army is like light years ahead in quality compared to Spring's army. At this point, Spring is given enough time to start teching into Halberdier, and then T90 is not gonna have a response to that. That monk, I feel for him. That's gonna be the worst ever job, just trying to steal a relic from here. But this allows T90 to spot this castle. I think the Cavaliers will arrive a little too late. They might be able to pick off a couple of vills, but yeah, this castle does go up. On the other hand, the Cavaliers can still commit to this one, and I honestly feel like as Spring tries to drop a palisade wall over here to create a nice choke point for those Arbs, I feel like T90 might even be able to commit against that castle with the Cavaliers, or soon to be Paladins, especially because he has a trap shooting at this one. He could just commit against this one and clean up Spring's army. Spring is gonna have to be careful about the bombard cannon over here that T90 is spotting. He also sees the Halberdiers now, but he also sees that, look, these are only +1/+1 Halberdiers, so T90 still has time to react to those, and he's gonna have to do so with hand cannoneers most likely, something I don't see from him just yet. If T90 can get to Paladin hand cannoneer here, I don't see Spring being able to stop him, and now it very much seems like we're gonna have T90's Paladin trickling in on the north as well, in an effort to try and just deny this stone mine from Spring. T90 has a massive population advantage by 172 versus 120, and Spring only has 6 Halberdiers. He has only 3 barracks, actually 4 now. 5? 6. Okay, Spring's got the production here, he just doesn't have the upgrades. Like, these Paladins are basically fully upgraded in a matter of seconds, whereas on the other side, these Malay Halberdiers, they are +1/+2, so they're not actually amazing. And now T90 actually gets a couple of Paladins into the opponent's base, picks off a bombard cannon. If those Paladins just start running around, they can cause a lot of chaos, and indeed that's what's happening. On the north, we already have Paladins in, and Spring is dropping in Will count really rapidly here. This buys some time for T90 to start preparing the switch into hand cannoneers, which is already happening, so you see hand cannons being queued up. This very much seems like this could be another T90 game, and that would bring us to game number 5. And look at T90. He's channeling his inner Viper with that yellow color and just yoinking that relic away. He's also focusing down the barracks, knowing that his opponent is living and dying with those Halberdiers. which is, I think, the right decision to make. T90 will be sitting on 5 relics eventually, because this should be easy for him to pick up as well. He's got majority map control. He's denying a stone mine and the gold mine here from Spring, which is also worth noting. And at this point, he's got a 53 villas lead, and his army value is also double compared to the opponent. Now we're gonna have a decent force of Arbalest being assembled here by Spring, but he's definitely on the back foot. He needs to find some sort of momentum, like take one amazing engagement. I just don't necessarily see that happening. There is not enough Halberdiers here to take an amazing engagement here, and those hand cannoneers will make a quick work of them. This castle needs to go down here for T90 to be able to push further though, but it looks like he will actually just commit against this one. He has the eco to just flood units. At this point, his eco lead is satisfactory for, you know, just overrunning your opponent with Paladins with a couple of hand cannoneers supporting. And if this castle goes down, those Paladins will be able to commit against this fight. It looks like T90 will just tech into Onager to deal with the Arbalests and the Halberdiers, mostly the Arbalests. He's got the map controls, so he doesn't need to rush this one, and I wonder if he knows about this relic here, because he hasn't picked it up just yet. And I wonder if he only realized that the relic is over there when he made this mining camp, because otherwise I think he would have picked that up a lot earlier. Nonetheless, we're gonna have bombard cannons coming in here as well for T90. Alongside trebs, he can just start trebbing down these barracks to make it harder for Spring to tech switch into Halberdiers. Those hubs are still missing a lot of upgrades. You see that Spring's eco is just unable to squeeze out the resources needed to have good numbers and good upgrades. It's still +1, +2 only, like not even iron casting on those. Now the bombard cannon is actually gonna get a nice hit on top of those arbs, as the trebs will start shelling the buildings. Hand cannoneers, it's quite a lot of hand cannoneers behind. Spring will try to focus them down with the Arbalest, but he just doesn't have the meat shield in front of those arbs, as the Paladins will just jump on the arbs. And I think T90 would benefit quite heavily from taking that gate down with the trebs. Now comes a bombard cannon. While the Arbalests are nicely squeezed in over there, the bombard cannon can just finish them off, and Spring realizes that T90's Paladins will just eventually overrun his eco. He's down to 8 army, and the Burgundians on Arena yield a win here for T90. Way better eco, and yeah, I think the key was timing. Spring went into Imperial, but that was an imp into nothing, because he just didn't have the upgrades. And especially when Spring hits Imperial, that's like a warning sign for T90 that, hey, I'm going to get pushed soon. So even if T90 hasn't clicked up by the time that Spring reaches Imperial, that tells T90 that he needs to click up immediately to have a chance at holding off an Imperial Age push. So Spring also sort of revealed his intentions by going into an early Imperial, and he just didn't have the upgrades needed on his units. Like, he reached Imperial with crossbowmen and +1 attack, and that is like, if you want to do this, it's a very, very strong play from Malay, but you gotta have like 20 crossbows with full upgrades, like ballistics, at least Botkin arrow, so that when you reach Imperial, you can go for immediate chemistry, arbalest, and bracer, so that you can actually press on in the next 1 or 2 minutes. That didn't happen, and that just allowed T90 to mess a lot of Paladins, and something that Spring never really had an answer to, because his Halberdiers, he wasn't able to tech switch into Halberdiers realistically. He went for some, but the upgrades were never there, and fully upgraded Paladins with hand cannonery support were satisfactory to deal with them. And with that, Burgundians are gone for T90, and Malay are gone for Spring, which means that for the last game of the set, we are gonna have Teutons Persians remaining for T90, and Lithuanians Turks for Spring. The map is Atacama, which means it could be Teutons versus Lithuanians. It's definitely gonna be Lithuanians from Spring. I think Spring picked Turks and Malay for Arena, and then decided to buy Malay here. But I could have seen him using Turks if T90 doesn't go for Burgundians. Regardless, we will jump into the final game over here. The winner goes into the grand finals, and the loser is obviously out of the tournament. So Welcome to Atacama. This is basically the Red Bull style Atacama. So you have the pawns in the corners. That's not there in the standard Atacama versions. We're going to have Spring as Lithuanians here in purple on the south. And to the north, it's going to be T90 in yellow Persians. Both of these civs are amazing for this map because you can drop an early dock. And you see that the reason why Spring actually picks Lithuanians here is because you can drop that dock very early, like right now. And he's going to be able to get some nice advantage at the beginning. Relic-wise, the relics are actually evenly scattered across the map. You have 1 in the middle and 4 in this outer desert. In terms of map spawn, this map spawn doesn't seem to favor T90. It doesn't have any big forests or ones that are close to his base. This is the best one he can take, or maybe this one, but neither of these are great. In contrast, Spring has 2 forests that are very close to his base. This one is actually a very, very big and bulky one as well. So I feel like I like the map from Spring a lot better. For now, it looks like T90 will open with some deer push over here from the north. And Spring is looking for T90. So there's a chance he will try to pull off a lame, because this is a decider game. So at this point, his concept is probably that if he can actually push T90 into a big hole by laming him or so, that could be devastating for T90, and he might not be able to recover for it to an extent that allows him to beat Lithuanians here, especially because Lithuanians will have a better eco in general in early game. So you see that there's already 10 to 9 will count. That is because you already have fishing ships out here for Spring. Boar coming in here for T90. And it looks like Spring is just chilling there at the deer. He will find 2 sheep. And he's going to lame that 2 sheep away. It looks like T90 is going to go for an early lumber camp over here. He's 4 on wood, which means that he's going to drop a dock in all certainty. The question is where, and it also very much seems like T90... Oh, that's so unfortunate for T90. He was pushing in Ostrich and Zebra from here, but he never scouted this part. And this is where the sheep were at. So, because these huntables are so spread out, he never actually scouted these, and I think he's just looking for his sheep. T90 loses 4 sheep to Spring over here. This is what I was referring to. And now he's going for the lot further away dock as well. This start is looking really grim for T90 here, because it takes so much time to walk from this TC to here. It would have been easier to just go for this pond. I guess the idea for T90 could be that this is surprising, because Spring might be expecting T90 to dock here, and because of that, Spring might try to sneak a dock up on the opponent in the future over there. Regardless, T90 is gonna have a dock up here, but at this point he's behind by 4 wheels. The Lithuanian player already has 4 fishing ships out, and that's going to be a massive eco advantage for Spring here. Whereas on the other side, as I said, T90 has lost 4 sheep to the opponent, and his dock is just now finishing. So this is a very late dock for T90 given the circumstances. I actually am okay with the idea of trying to get a somewhat more unpredictable dock location, although Spring will be able to scout that, so I'm not sure if that's actually something that is going to be enough to compensate for the fact that it delays your dock very heavily. And now Spring comes in here to try and push the deer in, or try to prevent T90 from pushing the deer, to be precise. Both scouts lose 6 HP but then go home. This will allow T90 to compensate for the lost sheep. This is extremely important for him, so he needs to sort of push in at least 3 of these to compensate for lost sheep, because each goat or sheep he loses is basically 100 food. 3 huntables would be 420 in terms of food, so that is what compensates for it. T90 already pushed in 1 at the beginning, so he's not going to lose anything, although if Spring himself pushes in there, then Spring is going to have a bunch of extra food to work with. T90 is the first one to actually kick up into fuel age, because he had more wheels on huntables, keep that in mind. And it seems like we're going to see a stable play, like a Scouts one from T90. In the Monaco game, where he played Scouts, he actually outplayed Spring really, really heavily. So that could give him a bit of a hope here. Still, I think that in terms of overall resources gathered, Spring must be miles ahead. Let's see. Actually, no. So it looks like the faster working for TC, or faster working TC for T90, actually compensates a tiny bit for the fact that he didn't have the fishing ships out that early. That's why T90 has sort of the same resources gathered, but that's definitely surprising given the fact that Spring has had these 5 fishing ships forever. Anyways, T90 is going to use one wood line over here, goes for a barracks here close to his base. For Spring, he's going to spread out his villas on 2 wood lines. And what I would love to see from Spring is a wall here. Because this would prevent T90 scouts from just running in here and hitting the middle of his base. And that would force T90 to run either to the right side or the left side to hit the wood lines. So I would have loved to see something like a barracks here as well, and then just a wall here for Spring. That could have helped so much at protecting his base. Same thing for T90, he's very much open here on his wood line. As he goes for double bidacks, Spring reaching fuel age, goes for a stable. I don't see double bidacks just yet for him. And it looks like we're not gonna have any sneaky docks from anyone. Bidacks on the way for our purple player as well. And T90 is gonna go for a mill. Spring, he still has quite a lot of herdables to take. What I would love to see from Spring is sending free whales out to take these huntables. They're so close that you could just do that. And it would give you a nice little extra food. You already have a decent food bank, so it's not like you need food immediately. You can just have free whales walk out, take those, and then go back home when they are done with all that. T90 actually was able to use his fuel age advantage here against Spring and landed quite a lot of hits on Spring Scout. So you see that the HP difference is actually fairly considerable. You get Spearmen fighting against each other as T90 is going to wall off his wood line. I wonder if Spring actually grabs map advantage, as we're going to have the first kill of the game by T90 over here, going Seville away from Spring. So what I wanted to say is that if Spring actually gets a map control advantage, we might actually see a tower come up here, because that's T90's only wood line, so it might be worth towering. For the time being, it looks like T90 is chasing a Spearman with a Veil. That's going to be cancelled, and now we will turn into a Scouts War thing. T90 is actually going for very, very heavy farming over here. He kinda has to. He already grabbed the horse color for that. Spring hasn't made any farms just yet, but he's just now running out of herdables. And here's the tower from Spring indeed. It's only one wheel making that. So if T90 spots it, he could get a defensive tower up. This might not work for Spring, but it's outside of the vision of T90, and it very much seems like it will remain on the on the outside vision, which is gonna be extremely important here. If T90 sees it, he pulls 7 wheels, makes a tower, and this never goes up. But in the current situation, considering that T90 doesn't see that, it's very possible that this tower goes up, and that's the only woodland that T90 can realistically access, as it's probably gonna go up 60%, and T90 still has no units going in that direction. I don't think that he's going to spot that in time. He could still rush up a tower, like just brute force it up, and then garrison the wheels and take it down though. So this is not the end of the world for T90, but it's definitely gonna be frustrating. Goes for a blacksmith, just like he did in the Monocle game, for probably fast forging. Let's see if we have that as well for Spring. Spring is just now adding farms here. He does so without horse color, and this is what I said. He should have sent these wheels out on the huntables a lot earlier when he had a bunch of food in the bank. Now he doesn't, and indeed he sees the tower, he rushes the tower up with a bunch of wheels, and he's going to try to force that tower down now. A train of spearmen coming in here for T90, and he will be forced to take this fight because the Lithuanian spearmen are faster, so they will eventually take those spears down. T90 actually managed to save this will over here that was under attack by Spring, so Spring didn't find that dock will over there. And the big problem for T90 here is that with this tower being up already, T90 is already forced to garrison a bunch of his lumberjacks into this tower, and he also has some of his wheels being harassed. Now, Spring doesn't have a single upgrade on those scouts, and T90 once again grabs a forging, which will help for both his spearmen and for his scouts. He needs to be careful not to run into the tower fire over here though, but it very much seems like this is the moment where T90 wants to take this fight. Some more spearmen coming in here for Spring. He's on 9 spearmen, man. still, the quality is right now better for T90. Spring is grabbing Forging himself, but T90 is already going for scale barding. Both players still on just one pond. And Spring already forced to make fish traps as he's running out of fish. Same thing is gonna be there for T90. As this tower eventually goes down, which means that T90 reclaims his wood line over here. Spring yoinks the lion that was trying to kill his vills. And with that, T90 definitely should pick that vill off, because that will be a nice value. Right now, Will KD is 1-1, and this will survive here. T90 even grabs Scale Mail, so he wants to buff those Spearmen as well. Right now, he's only one stable, though. He's gonna have to start adding fish traps really soon, because otherwise he's going to run out of fish. And one thing that I would like to highlight is that Spring's food income is actually very, very good. So, as I said, the extra food that you get from all those herdables could matter quite a bit. Also, Spring didn't go for scale barding, Spring didn't go for bloodlines. Okay, now he's going for those. He could have been thinking about going into Castle Age, but that's always a risky decision. If you go up into Castle Age too early, you will just die to the Feudal Age scouts. If you go up too late, you will just get beaten to Knights. Now, Persians will have camels available over here, which will make Knights play much harder from Lithuanians. As T90 wants to strike from multiple directions, Spring has a couple of defensive spearmen here, let's just say that. Like on this screen there is 10 defensive spearmen from Spring. And there's an overchop on T90's wood line. Oh boy, disaster. This could be the game here. Because, well, T90 is going to lose a couple of vills. That's gonna be quite a lot, actually. And he will have the chance to retaliate with his own scouts. The problem is that Atacama is just so cutthroat as a map. You fall behind, it's insanely hard to steer things back under your control because the map is so aggressive. So T90 now lost 8 vills in this game. He's down 5 compared to Spring. Not the end of the world for T90, but it's looking grim because now both players progressing towards Castle Age, but T90's eco is definitely gonna be weaker. If you add it to the fact that T90 doesn't have fish traps established, whereas Spring already does, then I would say that Spring is in a much better position. Spring, however, has quite a lot of farms without horse colors, so if T90 drags this game out, Spring is gonna have issues with wood getting into Castle Age or so. A second stable will be dropped over here, as T90 once again has an overchop over here. Scouts from Spring looping all the way around. And T90 is expecting that strike on his gold mines. He's patrolling his own scouts over here. 7 versus, I think, 8. This should be a fairly close fight, but T90 should have no trouble defending, and Spring indeed doesn't want to commit to this. So if T90 gets to Castle Age, he can definitely go for camos. As we are going Scale Mail here for Spring. He's on triple stables, but I wonder if he will actually go pikeman here. Because he's gonna need something against camels, which can be pikemen or which can be monks. He's trying to evade those spearmen, but it's going to be harder and harder to do so. T90 trying to hunt that army down over there. The good news for T90 is that despite the fact that he lost quite a lot of vills, he's Persians. So the faster working TC will allow him to sort of compensate for those vills over time. Added to the fact that Spring is, as I said, going to run out of farms soon. You see that he's forced to rebuild those farms right now, which means that affording a monastery is going to be challenging for him, and his food eco is suddenly going to be in trouble because you see that he's got 9 on wood, and I'm not sure if he's going to be able to replenish all these farms over here that will run out in the next couple of minutes. T90 will be playing, he adds a couple more scouts, so I would assume that he will tech into light cav. Like, this is a thing that Hera does very often. Go heavy on Feudal Age scouts, and then tech into light cav if you preserve quite a lot of them. T90 will go for some walls to preserve his gold miners, and +2 defense comes in here. Spring actually decides by pikeman, but as I said, it's not a full commitment to pikeman. It's actually triple stable knights and pikeman. That's going to be very hard for T90 to deal with, and I'm somewhat surprised that T90 is actually adding knights here and not camels. Still, the problem for T90 will be dealing with the pikeman, as he will probably clean this army up now. But how is he going to deal with Lithuanians here? And keep in mind that if the Lithuanian player drops a monastery, we could see this relic and this relic being picked up very easily, probably even this one by Spring. So Spring could be on free relics very soon, and as I said, on such an aggressive and cutthroat map like Atacama is, even that extra attack could be devastating for T90 to fight against. So I think T90 could use his own pikeman. There is a hole here that's gonna be plugged in just in time by that Will. But we still have the knights coming in. Spring already has +2/+1. T90 actually goes for +1/+2, which is slightly better for Spring, to be honest, because in Knight versus Knight Wars, you want to fight with attack upgrades, and you want to have that also buff your pikemen. And T90 is now fighting this one with Wills, but that feels so sad. And I think this could have all been avoided if he actually opened with like 2 camels to deal with the opponent's cavalry. He now has a couple of camels in, but now it's 11 Wills down from T90. And I feel like this is just a slow and painful bleed here from T90. Like, he is definitely losing Wills left and right. And Spring is getting more and more advantage and momentum. And when that happens, Spring is going to have the ability to pick up relics. Spring is going to be able to start leveraging the fact that he's triple stable knights and pikemen. T90 actually is able to get a couple of Will kills here, which compensates a tiny bit, so he's only behind by 4. So he's still not completely dead, but for example, 2 of his Wills, or well, in this case fishing ships, are still idle on the right side, because he doesn't have the wood to make new fish traps. And remember that T90 will soon have to expand towards additional wood lines over here, something that he has no map control for, and that could be very troublesome. Monastery now comes in here for T90. If he goes for camels, considering that Spring is not using his pikemen on the offensive, he could clean these knights up relatively easily. Spring, there's a chance he will move out to go for another pawn here. Neither of the players actually contest the other pawns. But yeah, the biggest thing here for T90 is that he's got 2 idols consistently. This will add up over time, especially when he's already behind by 4 Wills, because if he has 2 idols for like half an hour, that basically means he has a 6 Will deficit. The good news for him is that he has horse color, whereas Spring still doesn't. So Spring's farming eco isn't going to be very efficient in the long run. And that could help T90 outlast his opponent a little bit. It looks like T90 is buying wood here, which makes me wonder if we're going to see... or buying stone. He's not buying wood. Why would you buy wood here? He probably wants a TC somewhere around over here. Now, here's the deal. That's quite a lot of Lithuanian pikemen with +2/+1. So good upgrades, fast moving, and as I said, T90 doesn't really have the answer for them, as now they will start overrunning T90's camels, and at this point, it's almost double the army for Spring, way higher army value, and the biggest thing is that T90 doesn't really have an answer to the pikemen. Just like, it's somewhat similar to the Arabia game, where the flood of pikemen is something that T90 has a bit of a trouble with. He's taking into his own pikemen, but this is why it would have been better to grab iron casting compared to chain barring, because iron casting would have affected his pikemen as well, and it's just probably generally more valuable in a knight versus knight fight as well. So at this point, T90 has very little raiding potential because Spring has like 1 million defensive pikemen, as T90 is gonna have to quick wall his base, but oh boy, on the right side the knights break in. This might be the end here for T90 because the knights now overrun his gold miners, and as I said, it was sort of a slow bleed for T90 up until now. It's now a massacre, and yeah, he's down by 20 Wills now. He has lost 29 Wills in this game, and Spring doesn't want to overcommit. He just disengages, knowing that, look, he's got a way better eco now compared to T90. He knows exactly how much T90 lost, and it would be a heartbreaker for T90 to lose it here in this one, in what was a very, very competitive set, but it looks like Atacama, maybe the civilization was slightly better here for Spring, maybe the execution was a little bit better, but at this point I don't see T90 coming back into this one. He's 44 population versus 100, and even if he somehow cleans this army up, which seems very unlikely considering he only has 10 army himself, it is nearly impossible for him to hold off the next wave. He tried to compensate and he killed like 5 Wills here on the wood line, but that still doesn't stop Spring from just overrunning every single bit of his economy. And T90 says GG, wishes good luck to Spring over here, who edges out a very, very close set over here in this one, winning 3-2 versus T90. And I believe that the opponent in the grand finals for him is going to be Daniel. I'll have to double check. But yeah, I think that was somewhat more predictable. Daniel, probably the best American player out there, is going to be the opponent for Spring. T90 ends his tournament over here with a 3-2 defeat versus Spring.